Things have literally been heating up here at the Star in Frisco this past week out on the practice field and here inside the Globe Live studio. This is the Blitz. Bill Jones along with Kyle Yeomans. I love this time of the year as OTAs get started. We're going to be in Oxnard for training camp before you know it, Kyle.
Oh, right around the corner. Now we've got a little bit of a schedule to go by as well. I mean, there's lots of things starting to point their direction and point everything toward the 2025 season.
Just a couple of months now before the start of training camp. Let's get to the big news of this past week. Of course, the schedule released back on Wednesday night. Cowboys 20-game season. We're going to include the preseason in a 20-game schedule.
As we should.
The 3 preseason games, 1 on the road at the Rams, 2 home games this year. You don't often see them to play Baltimore and Atlanta in the preseason, but that's what you got this year. And then to the regular season, of course, it all starts on the Thursday night season opener for the entire league, the kickoff of the season at Philadelphia, and we'll break it down further as we go along here, but that leads you up to the bye week. The bye week sandwiched around 2 Monday night games, and you look at the second half of the season starting in November. That's a gauntlet after that, but start things off here, Kyle. How about we talk a little bit about those Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to be raising a banner when the Cowboys come to town September 4th.
Yeah, it's been a long time since the Cowboys and Eagles have met that early in the season. This is usually a matchup saved for the latter part of the campaign, usually a November-December matchup. But the NFL thought that if there is going to be a banner raised between the two NFC East rivals, you might as well do it in prime time Thursday night football. One of 4 Thursday games for the Cowboys, an NFL record throughout this schedule. I think it's an incredible start to the season for 2 reasons. You get to know what your team is made of early, the initial benchmark both within your division and within the entire NFL as the reigning Super Bowl champs. Brian Schottenheimer and company will have an opportunity to go up there and try and play spoiler. That's the second reason. So you learn about your football team, you get to see what they're made of both on and off the field. This is an opportunity for this team to show just how many steps forward they've taken through the offseason and through the start of the Brian Schottenheimer era.
And what everyone's talking about, not only that Eagles game, but Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs coming here on Thanksgiving. In fact, the Cowboys playing not only on Thanksgiving Day at home, but also playing on Christmas Day, a noon kickoff Dallas time at Washington. I think this Thanksgiving Day game, Kyle, is going to be the most anticipated Thanksgiving game in the 60-year history of the series for Dallas.
And I think you're right, spot on. And I think that the fact is you have the dynasty that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though they did not win the Super Bowl last year, they had a shot and they were in New Orleans for the Super Bowl as AFC representatives last year. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Andy Reid is one of the best head coaches in all of football right now. This Chiefs team is still very, very dangerous in 2025. They're going to have a national stage and an opportunity on Thanksgiving to play spoiler now in the Cowboys' home stadium. It's an opportunity at AT&T Stadium to break some ratings records and to also make some memories because the Cowboys can play spoiler and turn things around for the Kansas City Chiefs as well.
First time Patrick Mahomes plays in an NFL game at AT&T Stadium. All right, we're just getting started here on the Blitz. Coming up later, we're looking at this draft class. The college coaches react to the Cowboys draft class. And coming up next, which 2025 matchups will prove to be the toughest when the Blitz continues.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz, presented by Blockchain.com, is brought to you by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by Blockchain.com. Invest like your icons with Blockchain.com. This segment is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, we live. Welcome to the Cowboys live stream. In the live stream, we got special guest Tyler Smith, Osa, we can't say his last name.
Odigizua,
bro. Odigizua, baby.
That's yours true.
And Sedarian Lamb.
And go!
Adios.
He cannot drive.
I drive way better than you.
He just got some money and some fancy cars. Put me in a different car. I don't want to be in a cartwheel. I don't want to be in a cartwheel. I don't want to be in a cartwheel.
Oh, man. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know, most people play golf at the Cowboys Golf Classic. That foursome did a whole bunch of other things. I hope you watched America's stream. That's what I did, getting ready for the schedule release on Wednesday night. That got me fired up for some football, and this will get you fired up for this season, or maybe not as we go along here, because it's a pretty daunting second half of the schedule, as we've talked about here. But let's dive into the first half here, Kyle, and what are you seeing here?
Well, I see some tough games here as well. We'll get to the second half and just the gauntlet that is. But, of course, we talked about it already. You open up against the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. That's the first shot for Brian Schottenheimer to make an impact. We'll talk more about that as the offseason goes along, because that's the first benchmark test. I really want to look at the first couple games against the NFC North. You've got the Chicago Bears in Week 3 and the Green Bay Packers in Week 4. Two teams that could go in very different directions. You have the Bears behind a second-year quarterback, first-year head coach Ben Johnson. You got Caleb Williams at quarterback. You got some added weapons there on the outside. Of course, they made kind of a questionable first-round selection with Colston Loveland at the tight end position, but they're trying to protect Caleb Williams, and they're trying to give him some weapons to throw to. That might be an offense with a new play caller and a new system that might be better than they were last year. Is it enough to disarm the Cowboys at Soldier Field early in the season? At least it's not a cold game. Still something to look at. And then the Packers have never lost at AT&T Stadium in their entire franchise history. They've come to Arlington, they've won a Super Bowl, and they've beaten the Cowboys every time they've seen them. That's going to be another tough test from Jordan Love and company. Lost a couple key pieces over the course of the offseason. How good are they going to be? And then, of course, this 1-2 punch down in the middle. Washington and the Broncos on the road at Mile High Stadium. Washington coming off that NFC title game appearance, and the Broncos off of kind of an overachieving year in 2024. How good are they really going to be in 2025?
You know, and when you look at this and what happens on the back half of this schedule, this 6-game stretch, Cowboys better win a lot of games early in this season, because this is a gauntlet, as you put it.
Yeah, so let's go from here all the way down to here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight teams that had at least 11 wins in the 2024 campaign. And by the way, there's only one team with only 11 wins, and that was the Los Angeles Chargers. It's the first time in NFL history that a team has faced 6 straight teams and opponents that won 11 games the previous year. That is a tough schedule. You've got all 3 teams that were represented in the conference championship game outside of the Buffalo Bills. This is just an unbelievable end of the season. Even if you get through this alive and you make the postseason, you got to make sure and stay healthy in different parts, because you're going to be banged up by the end of it. You get the Giants on the road to close things out, back-to-back divisional road games to end the season. The NFL did not do any pleasantries for the Cowboys on the second half of the schedule.
Happy holidays, Dallas Cowboys fans, from Thanksgiving week to Christmas Day. We'll see what you got. All right, we continue on the Blitz in just a moment. Tommy Yarish will be joining the show and building this team through the draft with some culture guys when we come back.
Let's talk Kyle picks. All these kind of getting picked up by other major outlets that feel the need to mention it. Micah Parsons' brother Terrence advocated the Cowboys trading a second-round pick for Kyle Pitts, as I merge picks and Pitts into one word. Look, that got picked up by other outlets, which again isn't surprising. It's May. I've got issues here, and I actually don't find this really all that likely. And I would even argue, I don't think it's something you should want the Dallas Cowboys to do. The last 2 seasons, here are the numbers for Kyle Pitts and Jake Ferguson, respectively. Ferguson's got more targets, more catches, actually a little bit lighter on the yards. He does average 3 yards per catch here, in part because of the way those players are used. Pitts actually played in 3 more games over the past 2 seasons, so again, that's maybe the reasoning behind more yards. Same amount of drops, which at that point is actually a bigger red flag for Pitts, because he's got 24 fewer targets and 30 less catches. But that's not that different. Like, that level of production isn't really a huge difference. At least it's not a big enough difference to justify a second-round pick difference, right? Right? Look, Kyle Pitts was awesome in 2021. Then he got hurt in 2022, and he hasn't been the same guy. This level of production, not getting to 700 yards, at the point where he's got more drops than touchdowns over the course of his NFL career. I think that in general, the idea of Kyle Pitts is a lot more intriguing than the current version. I've got more thoughts on this here. But would you trade for Kyle Pitts? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off for me in the comment section of today's show. Seems like every couple months there's some type of Kyle Pitts trade, idea, suggestion, whatever. At this point, entering year 5, the idea, the hope of what Kyle Pitts is or could be, I think is far greater than the actual realized version of what we have right now in the Falcons' young tight end. He's due almost $11 million this upcoming season. You want to pay $11 million for a guy that's got more drops than touchdowns and hasn't hit 700 yards in 3 seasons? The idea of shipping off a second for Kyle Pitts, even though you can't draft in the second, that's a massive overpay. I don't think he's remotely worth that at the current contract and impact he's going to give you. A trade in 2025 isn't something I've got interest in. It's just not. Now, if and when Kyle Pitts becomes a free agent next offseason, I want you to do it with Jake Ferguson, that could very well be a different conversation. But right now, I get that there's the name brand. I don't think it's a worthwhile investment. Now, we'll have more daily Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos for you right here on the channel. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV.